Laurent, il y a une voiture brûlée.
From Paris because violence has flared up at a protest organised by opponents of French presidential candidate and National Front leader Marine Le Pen, with smoke grenades and tear gas being used. Well, clashes between anti-Le Pen protesters and police took place outside the venue where supporters of the National Front leader are due to hold an event. RT's Charlotte Dubinsky reports now from the scene.
The anti-Le Pen protesters have come here to protest against the fact that the National Front is due to hold a rally in the venue just behind me. We saw hundreds of people lining up to go into that venue earlier today. This is clashes between the protesters and the police. The protesters lighting fires, throwing glass bottles. I mean, there's actually glass all on the floor behind me from where they've been throwing those bottles. And they have been also throwing canisters at the police, rocks even, and we did see one camera person, one member of the press, having their camera taken off them and smashed to pieces in front of us as those protesters were making their protests. They were saying that they're unhappy with the National Front holding this rally here in Paris. They call them fascists and they say that they don't want them here, and they're calling on people to rise up on the streets in Paris against them. Now, there are rallies ongoing across France today for the different political parties, and that's because we are now into the last few days of campaigning before the first round of the French presidential election. And Marine Le Pen is expected, according to the polls, to go through to the second round to battle it out for the presidency against who the polls say at the moment is Emmanuel Macron. These polls are unpredictable and they're also tight, and we are seeing rising support for the left candidate Jean-Luc Mélenchon and also for the Republican candidate François Fillon. So it's been a difficult night here. Fires, clashes with the police. At the moment, it looks like things are easing up, but what the protesters are doing is they're dispersing around this venue, which has 7 or 8 entrance points, and the police are heavily guarding each of those entrance points. So what we're seeing is flashes of clashes between the protesters and the police at each of those entrance points to this venue where that National Front meeting is being held.
Charlotte Dubinsky reporting from Paris tonight there. Well, protests are only part of the efforts to steer voters from certain candidates, which have been escalating as the French elections draw nearer. Posters, in fact, with cartoon characters nod towards the scandal around Republican François Fillon's expensive suits and also his alleged fake jobs for his family, while Harry Potter's nemesis is evoked for the National Front leader as she who must not be named. Well, Marine Le Pen's candidacy is stirring up concerns among senior European politicians too. The German president's warning voters against choosing Le Pen and her anti-EU platform. He said her promise of a great French future would undermine the country's EU status. There's harsher criticism, though, across the Atlantic, with the host of the satirical show Last Week Tonight not mincing his words.
Le Pen est, comme on dit en français, démagogue. Un monstre démagogue.
But it seems the French public aren't happy with any of the candidates, some joking that maybe Barack Obama could be appointed leader. A new poll suggests, too, a widespread dissatisfaction with the level of debate during the election campaign, and that some candidates don't seem to understand their own pledges. Let's get more now from French lawyer Hosni Marti, who joins us tonight. Good evening to you, Hosni. Let's start with the scenes we've seen in the capital tonight, Paris, and those anti-Le Pen protesters clashing with police. Are you surprised to see that?
Well, it's always a surprise to see that even if we don't agree with Marine Le Pen ideas, and you know that I absolutely don't agree with its ideas, it's always a surprise to see that there is violence. But I'm not that surprised, to tell you the truth, because it is well known that violent arguments, violent ideas are pushing persons who are sometimes too weak to control themselves to violent actions. So there is a thing that we have to know when you're regarding the situation of France, is that Marine Le Pen is still seen as a racist person who is against all people who are not white, Catholic, and things like that. Last week she said that the Rafle du Veldiv, which is a very dark part of French history during the Second World War, has nothing to do with France. So it's kind of sentences that shows that Marine Le Pen is still a far-right party, she's still racist, and that's why people are reacting like that, even if I don't absolutely agree with those violence.
Sure, although she has a lot of support too, doesn't she, Hosni? Is France really divided right now? What's your feeling?
Well, France is not as divided as some media or social networks would like to show it. It is true that we are having a very complicated election, and the thing is that there has a lot of issues that have to be resolved with this next election, presidential election. So the aim of all the politicians is to make sure that they are going to win this election, and sometimes they are using words and things that I cannot say that is very democratical. So we are still in a democratical country. The spirit of freedom and brotherhood is still pregnant in France, is still present in France. And when you have a politician, even if she has a lot of supporters, who is against this spirit, the consequences are well known. Unfortunately, it is violence. But I'm not sure that it will be as violent as it can appear in your television tonight, because it is not so important, I think.
OK, Hosni, good to talk to you. We have to leave it there. That was Hosni Mati, a French lawyer. Thank you.